Moving on to today's discussion, we are honored to have Mr. Shri Roy join us today. Shri volunteers his time both at the DC Library Center for Accessibility, as well as ibugtoday.org, both of which he is an expert when it comes to Apple accessibility, and he's getting pretty good at the Android accessibility as well, I've heard. So Shri, we're really excited to have you on today. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to help out. I'm going to pass the mic over to you.
All right, Sean, I just want to say thank you to POB for allowing me to come and talk about VoiceOver. As Sean said, my name is Shri Roy. I started learning the use of the VoiceOver when I lost my vision around 2014 or so. At that time, I never used the iPhone. I was an Android user, and I went to my local DBVI here in Virginia, and they recommended that I use an iPhone. And so I took some time to learn the gestures, which is what we're going to talk about today. Just like when I learned how to use my white cane, I went through a mobility instructor, kind of learned the ins and outs of using the cane. It is kind of the same philosophy in my eyes when it comes to learning the iPhone. We want to learn some of the basic gestures. And once you know the gestures, we can pretty much do most of the things that are on the phone, as long as we understand how to navigate. And that's what I'm going to focus on today is how do we navigate things around the phone using all kinds of gestures. So an iPhone, I'm sure everybody here, if you do have an iPhone and used it, you kind of know some of the things I'm going to talk about. When I teach the class about iPhone, I use the word element. And so what is an element? An element is everything that's on our screen that the VoiceOver reads. For example, if it reads an app, it says the phone app. That's an element. Or if it reads a character or a word, a line or paragraph, anything that VoiceOver reads, we call that an element. And the way we navigate on our iPhone is we navigate from left to right. So whenever we try to go on the home screen or a website or an email or iMessage, anything we try to navigate, the basic navigation is going left to right or right to left. All right, so with that said, I'm going to go ahead and talk about some of the navigation, and we'll take a break somewhere around 20 minutes, then I'll open it up for some questions, and then we'll continue from there. Okay, we're going to first take a look at some of the finger gestures that we perform. And I'm going to have my phone here, and every gesture that I talk about, I'll also demonstrate it on the phone so you can also hear it. Okay, so we're going to start with one finger.
Fitness. 2 hours out of 12.
I'm going to start with finger gestures, one finger. The first thing we're going to talk about is called Touch and Explore. Touch and Explore is basically navigating the screen by moving our finger around. Because sometimes we don't know where things are located. And sometimes when a developer writes the program on the app, he sometimes forgets to label something, and VoiceOver will sometimes skip it. So as we learn to navigate, we try to do Touch and Explore to say, hey, where am I on the screen? What am I hearing? And then we kind of proceed with our navigation. So a Touch and Explore is just, I'm on my home screen right now. And the home screen is basically after you unlock your phone, it's where your apps reside. And I'm just going to touch and explore to figure out where I'm on the screen. And it would sound something like this.
What? Reminders, photos, contacts, photos, FaceTime, messages, notes, QR code.
And all I'm doing is taking
double
one
tap
finger,
to open.
And I'm just sliding my finger throughout the screen. And I'm just trying to understand and listen to what VoiceOver is saying. And one of the important things when I teach class is listening, because we can't see the screen, so we have to listen to what VoiceOver tells us. And VoiceOver will give us hints. Like, for example, if I touch something here.
WhatsApp, 31 new items. Double tap to open.
Okay.
Excuse me, Siri, is your video on? We don't see a video of you.
There's no video. This is just all audio.
Oh, just all audio. Okay,
Yeah.
sorry, thank you.
No worries, because there's nothing really for me to show you in the screen. It's just, I can't see the screen, so it'd be better for me to just kind of so you guys can hear it.
All right.
Okay,
And
so
Shri, I can jump in. I can jump in real quick here.
Yeah.
What other thing for folks to keep in mind is this is being recorded. So if you need to reference anything along the way, you can always re-access this when we post it. So if you miss anything small and you need to catch up, just so you know, it is being recorded, so you will be able to access it again. All right, Shri, go ahead. And one quick question somebody had was, how do you turn VoiceOver on in the first place?
Great question. That's a great question. So basically, and this is the great thing about the Apple environment. When you buy a brand new device out of the box, if you get an iPhone, an Apple Watch, a Mac computer, Apple TV, on the iPhone, if you press, depending on what model you get, if you get a phone with a home button, you'll press the home button 3 times. And once you press the home button 3 times, it'll turn VoiceOver on. And if you have a phone that doesn't have the home button, you'll press the side button on the right side 3 times. And that will turn your VoiceOver on. And I'll kind of talk about that when I go over each of the buttons. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and touch Explore again and find one of the apps.
Notes. Double tap to open.
Okay, it's a double tap to open. That's a hint. That's letting you know a double tap is a reference to one finger double tap. That's taking one finger and tapping it twice on the screen will open the app. So those are kind of hints. That's why I say when you're using VoiceOver, it's really important that you listen to these hints because it's going to give you a lot of information. Like when I first started, I always listen to those hints because it tells me what do I need to do. Okay, so that's called a touch and explore. Basically, you take your finger and you're just sliding your finger and letting VoiceOver read or speak all these different elements. The next thing I do is called a one finger touch on the screen. Okay, when I do a one finger touch, people will, if you ever call Apple accessibility and we don't know where we are on our screen, the first thing they'll say is take one finger and touch the middle of the screen. And I'll do one finger, touch the middle of the screen.
App Store.
Okay, it landed.
Double tap to open.
It landed on the App Store. So I know from now I can navigate, like I said before, we go navigate left and right. So when you first get your phone, and when you turn it on, you don't know where you are, you can do a touch and explore, or you can just do a one finger touch and let VoiceOver kind of tell you where you are. And eventually, as you start using your phone more and more, you'll kind of know where things are just based on repetition. Okay, if I wanted to open something, let's say, for example, I do a touch.
FaceTime.
Okay, that's FaceTime.
Double tap to open.
Okay, it's at FaceTime and double tap to open. That's the hint they gave me. So if I do a one finger double tap.
FaceTime. Edit. Button.
It opened the app FaceTime for me. So anytime you want to execute
Business.
something,
Move ring.
you want to
19%.
You want to have it open a website, open an email, open an app. We always do a one finger double tap. And sometimes people will say double tap. When they say double tap, they're referring to using one finger and tapping the screen 2 times really fast. Now, if you have issues with tapping the phone fast 2 times, we can also set it up in settings and accessibility with your tap gesture to go a little bit slower. Like you can go, instead of going tap, tap, you can go tap, tap. And even if you find those things difficult to do, then there are custom gestures we can create. Like, for example, I have a student that I was teaching. She could not double tap to save her life. She tried over and over. And then finally what we did is we swiped. I changed the double tap one finger to a 2-finger swipe to the right, and that performed a double tap. So we can do custom gestures. If you do find difficulty in performing a particular gesture, there are ways we can change it to do some other gesture to perform the same thing. So a one finger double tap is something that we use to open an element. Now, one thing that we also can do is with the one finger is, just touch, and it also gives us information. So if you, like I said, when you do a touch, it does give you some information before you do the double tap. Now, also, a one finger double tap also does one other thing. When we're in a text field, that is a field where you can actually type something in. Let's say, for example, your email address or a password or a body of an email. A one finger double tap brings the insertion point to the beginning or to the end. And when I say the beginning or to the end, that means the beginning of the paragraph or to the end of the paragraph. So let me give you an example. I've got our Notes app opened up here.
App switcher. Mail. Notes. Active. Notes locked. Notes. Note. Text field. Is editing. Welcome to POB VoiceOver 101. Insertion point at end.
Okay, you guys
Swipe up or down to select a custom.
You would have heard it say insertion point at end. That means that the cursor is at the end of this paragraph. And a one finger double tap also moves the cursor to the beginning of the paragraph. So when I'm in any kind of text field and I want to move the cursor to either to the beginning or the end, I can also do a one finger double tap. So I'll do that again.
Insertion point at start.
Okay. You would have heard it say insertion point at start. So all I did was a one finger double tap and it put the insertion point at the beginning of the paragraph. And if I do a one finger double tap again,
Insertion point at end.
okay, it moved the insertion point at the end. Now, this is really useful once you get more advanced into using a VoiceOver, is bringing that cursor to where you need it to go to make corrections, especially when it involves text editing. We like to try and get the cursor close to where we want to make our correction. So a one finger double tap will either execute and open an element, or in the text field area, it'll move the insertion point to either the beginning or to the end. Okay, the next thing we're going to talk about is a one finger triple
Fitness.
tap. So
Move
we
ring.
talked about a touch. We talked about a one finger double tap to execute something. And then we also have, let's say, one finger triple tap. And this is a really useful gesture because it brings up the context menu. And what I mean by that is most apps, especially the apps that are created by Apple, they have secondary options. Now, most of us, when I first learned how to use the iPhone, let's say I go to my phone app.
Dock. Phone. 2 new items.
Okay, typically, if I want to go to
Double tap to open.
Typically, if I want to go to the phone app, I would do a one finger double tap because that's our execute, right? So when I do a one finger double tap on the phone app.
Phone. Lists. Back button.
Okay, it actually opens the phone app and I'm able to go to the bottom and I have, my favorites.
Active tab bar. Favorites. Tab. 1 of 5.
And if I go to the right of that, I have my
Recents.
recent
Tab.
calls.
2 of 5. Selected. Contacts. Tab. 3 of 5.
I swipe right again, it goes to these tabs in the bottom. So when I did a one finger double tap on the phone app, it actually just opened the app itself. Now, the one finger triple tap helps us in doing one thing here. So I'm going to go ahead and close my phone app. I'll come back and talk about how to close things.
App switcher. Phone. Active. Swipe up with 3 fingers to close the app. Actions available.
Okay, it gave me a hint saying 3 fingers to close the app. So I'm just going to do a 3 finger swipe up to close the phone app.
Closing phone. App switcher. Notes. Active.
Okay, if I go back to the phone app,
Dock. Contacts. Notes.
if I go back to the phone app, but this time I don't do a one finger double tap, but I do a one finger triple tap, I get the context menu. And I'll give you an example of what shortcuts I get.
Dock. Phone. 2 new items.
Okay,
Double tap to open.
I'm going to do a one finger triple tap.
Remove app. Button.
Okay, you probably heard it say remove app, but before it said remove app, you heard a little bit of a sound. That told me that sound is an indication of a context menu. And that's when when I train people how to use the iPhone, that's what I listen for. Did I hear that context menu sound? But in this case, I heard it and it said remove app. So instead of when I did a one finger double tap and opening the phone app, this context menu actually hasn't opened the phone app. It's just giving me some shortcuts that's available to me to pick from on the phone app. And one of the things is ask me if I want to remove the phone app, which I don't want to do. But what I'm going to do is just swipe right and listen to the secondary options that I get.
Remove app. Button.
I'm going to swipe right with one finger.
Edit home screen button.
Okay, I'll come back to that. I can edit the home screen. We don't. That's more in the high at a higher level.
View most recent voicemail button.
Okay, I can view my recent voicemail without actually going into the phone app. It's giving me an option to quickly look at that recent voicemail calls without me going to the one finger double tap and opening the phone app, then swiping right all the way to the voicemail. I can do a one finger triple tap, then swipe right with one finger, and I can listen to my recent phone calls. Now swipe right again.
Create new contact button.
Okay, I've got another shortcut. I could create a new contact. So once again, my phone app is not open. It's just giving me a shortcut to create a new contact. Instead of me going to the phone app, going to those tabs in the bottom and opening the contacts tab, I can go quickly and get to the contacts from here.
Search for contact button.
I could also search for contacts without actually going to the phone app.
View most recent call button.
I can also view the most recent calls here. Once again, I'm able to get all these shortcuts without actually going in the phone app by doing what's called a one finger triple tap, which is our contacts menu.
Dismiss context menu button.
Okay, and I can also dismiss it. That's just going to close the contacts menu, which I'm going to do by doing a one finger double tap. Remember, one finger double tap is always an execution of doing something. And here it says the dismiss button. And if I want to accept the dismiss button, I'll do a one finger double tap.
Dock, phone, 2 new items. Double tap to
Okay.
open.
So about the one finger triple tap, which brings up the contacts menu, you'll also hear it says it's the long press. And that's something that you might hear people at Apple Accessibility say, hey, do the long press. And if they say that, then you know you'll be doing a one finger triple tap. It's also called a long press. Okay. Now let's take a look at the next one. All right, so I've pretty much covered the taps. Now, one thing about swiping, like I said, when we swipe our fingers on our iPhone, we swipe from left to right. So for example, if I'm on the phone,
Setting, App Store.
I'm gonna swipe right.
Double tap to open.
When I swipe right, I'll go to the element that's to the right of the VoiceOver cursor, or right of the element. So if I swipe right.
Calendar, Tuesday, April 18th. 2 new notifications.
Okay, I went to the
Double
next.
tap to open.
I went to the next app that's to the right of that VoiceOver cursor, or the VoiceOver element focused on. So I swipe right again, I'll go to the next element that's to the right of this one.
Contacts.
And so on.
Double
If I
tap to
swipe right.
open.
And if I swipe right, if I swipe left, I'll go back to the previous element.
Calendar, Tuesday, April 18th. App Store.
And I swipe left
Double
again,
tap to open.
I'll go to the previous element. So when we're swiping, when we're navigating on our iPhone, we're only swiping left or right. We don't swipe up or down when we're navigating on our iPhone. Because when we swipe up and down, we don't go to the app that's above this app or below this app. We go what's called the action item of the app. So for example, if I go to
Calendar, Tuesday,
Calendar,
April 18th. 2 new notifications.
and I flick
Double
up,
tap to open.
and I flick up with one finger, up or down, it doesn't matter. It brings up the action item for this particular app. In this case, it's going to either be activate or edit. So if I flick up,
Edit mode.
I can edit this app, or
Activate.
I can open
Default.
this app. So when you're navigating, we don't flick up or down with one finger. We only swipe or flick left and right, because any element that you focus on, when you swipe up or down, you're just going to get the action item.
Hey, Shri, it's a
Yeah.
20-minute mark.
Okay, so let's go ahead and does anyone have any questions of what I covered?
And folks, if you have any questions, you can put in the chat box. If you want to ask audibly, you can also unmute yourself. There's a small microphone button normally at the bottom left of your screen. Additionally, on your keypad, you can press the Alt button plus the letter A, and that will unmute yourself.
No questions usually means a good instructor.
Before he goes on, here, okay.
Shall
Shall I, may I talk?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Is this being recorded because all the information you're giving me is too fast for me to absorb. So I want to know if I can replay it.
Yes, it
answer
is
is
being
yes.
recorded.
It is.
Yep.
How do I find it? By going to this app again, or this email?
If you're on the Prevention of Blindness Society email list, we have the we'll be sharing the recordings then later this week.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, any other questions? All right, if not, I'll continue, Sean.
Go right ahead. Thank you.
Okay, the next thing I'm going to talk about is two fingers, okay? Now, we have some really important gestures with two fingers. The first one is a two-finger single tap. This is used to pause when VoiceOver is speaking. For example, if I have VoiceOver speaking right now.
Calendar, Tuesday, April 18th. 2 new notifications. Contacts. Messages. 28 unread messages. FaceTime.
I just did a two-finger single tap, and it paused whatever VoiceOver is speaking. So this is really useful for us when something is talking on the background, like say VoiceOver is speaking, and you want it just to pause for a second, you can do a two-finger single tap. And if I do a two-finger single tap again, it's going to continue just where it left off.
Photos. Camera. Notes. WhatsApp. Settings. Double tap to open.
And once again, I can do a two-finger single tap to pause VoiceOver speech. So whenever VoiceOver is talking, all you need to do is do a two-finger single tap, and it'll pause where VoiceOver is speaking. And when you want it to resume, you just do a two-finger single tap again. Very useful. I tell people all the time when you're in a group, when you're in a crowd and VoiceOver is speaking, and you just want it to pause for a second, just do a two-finger single tap, and it'll pause it. Now, one thing to keep in mind, when you use more than one finger, you do have to make sure your fingers are apart. If you have two fingers together, it sometimes thinks it as a one finger instead of two fingers. So just make sure your fingers are slightly apart, and then do a two-finger single tap. And one thing that's also to keep in mind, when you're touching the screen, you don't have to put a lot of pressure. The screen is very sensitive. You just barely touch it. I barely touch it, and it recognizes the two-finger single tap. Now, one other thing that you can also do with the two-finger is, I mentioned that you can do a one-finger double tap to execute something. And some people have difficulty doing that. So you can also do what's called a touch with one finger and tap with another finger. So for example, if I touch this app, for example.
FaceTime.
Okay.
Double tap to open.
Right now, one finger is touching the app only, and nothing else is touching the screen. With my other finger, I can tap anywhere on the screen.
FaceTime. Edit. Button.
And it opens the app also. So there's two ways to execute an app or execute the one finger double tap. You can also do a touch with one finger and a tap with another finger. So that's another way. If some people have difficulty double tapping, you could touch with one finger and then touch anywhere on the screen with another finger, and it'll also act as a double tap. So that's a pretty good handy feature if you have
App
difficulty
switcher.
in doing
FaceTime. Close notes. Closing
double
note.
tap. The next thing I want to talk about is a two-finger double tap. This is called the magic tap. This is a gesture that I perform all the time. A two-finger double tap is what we can use to answer a phone call. We don't have to find that slide to answer button. When you get an incoming call, just do a two-finger double tap. It'll answer the call. And when you want to disconnect the phone call, you just do a two-finger double tap. It'll disconnect the call. You don't have to find that disconnect call button. Makes it nice and easy for us to just incoming call, two-finger double tap. Once you're done talking, you can do a two-finger double tap. Now, the two-finger double tap can also be used in other applications, such as listening to an audiobook. A two-finger double tap will start and stop an audiobook. If you're watching a movie, you can do a two-finger double tap, start and stop a movie, as well as listening to music. That's why they call it a magic tap. It does a lot of different functionality, but mostly what I use it for is to do To answer a phone call and to disconnect a phone call is a 2-finger double tap. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is a 2-finger triple tap. Now, a 2-finger triple tap is if you're trying to see what's on your screen, and the screen can have lots of different things in all different categories. Like what I mean by that is it's not listed anything in order. It can be, an app on the, my application or my my settings app could be way up on the top, and then my phone app could be somewhere in the middle. Then I could have my email app somewhere in the end. But if I do a 2-finger triple tap, it will list everything on the screen alphabetically. So it's a quick and easy way to see everything from an alphabetical perspective is a 2-finger triple tap. This is very useful for if you're surfing the web and you know that, hey, I just don't know where this particular part on the website is, but if I do a 2-finger triple tap, it will list all the headings, the links, and everything alphabetically. So it's a very easy and useful tool is the 2-finger triple tap. Now, I'm going to talk about the 2-finger swipes. A 2-finger swipe down will read everything from where the VoiceOver focuses to the end. So for example, if I touch my screen here.
Mail, current action, close mail, active.
And I wanted to read.
Swipe up with 3 fingers to close the app. Swipe up or down to select a custom action. Then double tap to activate.
I want to read everything from this mail app towards till the end of my screen. I'll just do a 2-finger swipe down.
Mail, current action, close mail, active. FaceTime, current action, close FaceTime, active.
Okay, a 2-finger swipe down will read everything from wherever the VoiceOver focuses to the end. So for example, if I go somewhere else.
FaceTime, Jasmine Roy, 9.
If I wanted, let's say, for example, I received an email and I want to open it and I want it to read it to me. Let's go find an email.
App switcher, FaceTime, mail, mail, act, mail, message content, free vision event in DC.
Okay, I've got this POB email open and I just want it to read. I don't want to swipe right, let it go one line at a time. I want it to read it automatically for me. I do a 2-finger swipe down.
Free vision event in DC, MD and VA. View this email in your browser. Link. VoiceOver 101, Apple iPhone and iPad. Tech Talk Tuesday today.
So a 2-finger swipe down will read from wherever the VoiceOver focus is. It will read all the way to the end. But let's say I want to read from beginning to end. My VoiceOver focus is in the middle of the screen, but I want to read it from the beginning to the end. I'll do a 2-finger swipe up. So if I do a 2-finger swipe up, it's going to start reading from way from the top left and read it all the way to the bottom. So for example, if you were reading a book and you wanted to read from the beginning to the end, you do a 2-finger swipe up.
All inboxes, back button, previous message, button, next message, button. Your network settings prevent content from loading privately. Load content, button. This message is from.
Okay, and I did a 2-finger single tap to pause from what VoiceOver is speaking. So a 2-finger swipe up read from the top left corner of my screen and started reading from left to right, going down towards the bottom of the screen. So it's a very easy and useful shortcut is the 2-finger swipe down is to read from wherever VoiceOver focus is to the end, and to read from beginning to the top, we do a 2-finger swipe up. All right, those are our fingers. And there's one other 2-finger that I want to also talk about is the scrub. That's a 2-finger and you write the letter Z or write the letter N or write the letter S. A scrub lets me go back. So for example, I'm going to go ahead and open up settings.
Settings.
Double tap to open it.
Double tap to.
And then I'm going to go to VoiceOver.
Settings. Search. Search. Dictate. Button. VPN. Wi-Fi. Airplane. Bluetooth. Cellular. Personal hots. VPN. Sounds. Focus. Screen time. General. Controls and display and bright. Home screen. Accessibility.
And there's my accessibility. Button. I'm going to double tap that to open that.
Vision. Heading.
I'm going to go to VoiceOver.
VoiceOver.
Swiping right once.
Button.
And I double tap to open that. So now what I've done is I've gotten 3 layers inside the settings app. I've gotten settings, then I went into accessibility, and then I went into VoiceOver. So I'm in 3 layers inside settings. Now, if I want to go back to the previous, let's say I want to go back to the accessibility settings, which is 1 layer back, I could find the top left corner and find the back button. That's one way of doing it. I'd have to find it. But if I do a scrub, which is I'm taking 2 letters and I'm forming the letter Z or the letter N or letter S. And if you don't know your letters, let's say you've never learned the letters, it's taking 2 fingers and going from left to right and right to left and then left to right. It'll take me back 1 layer. So if I do a scrub now.
VoiceOver on button.
Okay, I went back 1 layer to accessibility. So if I go on the top left, you'll know that.
Settings, back button.
Okay, my back button, it says settings. That would take me back to the first layer. So if I do a scrub again.
Accessibility settings, heading.
Now I'm back into my first layer of settings. So a 2-finger scrub always takes me back 1 layer. This is very useful if you're browsing the web. And let's say you go to POB, and then you go to one of the events, and then you go to another link, and you go to the next link to that. If you want to go back on a web page, you have to find that back button. A quick and easy way is just do a scrub. It'll automatically take you back.
General button. Accessibility button.
Okay. Now I'm going to talk about 3
Move
fingers.
ring 19%.
Now 3-finger single tap tells me where the VoiceOver focus is on the screen. So right now, I don't know where VoiceOver focus is, but if I do a 3-finger single tap on the screen.
Fitness. System font regular. 19 point. Left justified. Top of screen.
Okay, it kind of gives me some information about where things are. This is kind of useful. If you don't know where you are, you can do a 3-finger single tap. The next one I'm going to talk about is a 3-finger double tap. Very useful. This is turning VoiceOver speech off. So if I do a 3-finger double tap.
Speech off.
Okay, my speech is off. That means VoiceOver is not going to talk. I typically do this if I'm on a phone call and I don't want the phone to start speaking when my cheek touches the screen. Sometimes VoiceOver will start speaking. So you can do a 3-finger double tap to turn the speech off. Now VoiceOver is not off, just the speech of VoiceOver is off. So if I swipe right, you'll hear the sound. Okay, that tells me that the VoiceOver is still on, the sounds and haptics are still running, but the speech is off. And all I need to do is do a 3-finger double tap to turn my speech back on.
Speech on.
Okay, now my speech is back on. So a 3-finger double tap turns the VoiceOver speech off and on. Not the VoiceOver, just the speaking part gets turned off. Next one is the 3-finger triple tap. That is tapping with 3 fingers 3 times. It turns the screen curtain on or off.
Speech.
Oops, I turned my speech off. Hold on.
Speech on.
I'm going to do 3 fingers, triple tap.
Screen curtain off.
Okay, screen curtain off and on. This basically turns the screen curtain off. As a VoiceOver user, my screen is, most of the time, is turned off. It's just pitch dark so that it gives me some privacy. Now, there are certain times I need to turn the screen curtain on. Like if I give my phone to my wife, obviously she can see, so she would want the screen to be turned on. So then I would do a 3-finger triple tap.
Screen curtain on.
Now, one time, there are some other times you will need the screen curtain on. If you ever contact Apple Accessibility and they need to do screen share with you, then they will ask you to turn your screen curtain off by doing a 3-finger triple tap. The last 3-finger tap that I want to talk about is a 3-finger quadruple tap. That is taking 3 fingers and tapping it 4 times. This is a very useful feature also because it copies VoiceOver's conversation to a clipboard. So this is useful if you're trying to figure out a copy and paste. Like if you want to copy what's on what VoiceOver says, you can do a 3-finger quadruple tap. So just to give you a quick example.
Reminders. 5 tasks due today. Double tap to open.
Okay, that verbiage that VoiceOver just spoke, if I do a 3-finger quadruple tap.
Reminders 5 tasks due today copied to clipboard.
Okay, that whole verbiage is copied to the clipboard. Okay, and then if I go to my Notes app again.
App switcher. Mail. FaceTime, settings,
Let me open notes.
notes. Note toolbar, new note, note,
Okay.
text field, is
Now,
editing, insertion pointed star.
if I use the rotor, it's basically a gesture. I could copy what was copied from that reminders or the verbiage that was copied from the clipboard.
Misspelled word, edit, paste.
I could paste it.
Reminders 5 tasks due today.
So just by what VoiceOver spoke, I was able to copy that verbiage and I could paste it somewhere else. You could paste this in an email, a message, or in the Notes app, or anywhere else you need to do. A 3-finger quadruple tap copies the VoiceOver verbiage to the clipboard. And then I want to talk about 3-finger swipes. This is called our scrolling. So if I want to go from one page to the next page, I'll do a 3-finger swipe left, right, up, or down. And you have to kind of think about it like how you would scroll on an open book. So if I take 3 fingers and I swipe to the left,
Page 2 of 15.
I'm going to the right.
System font regular.
So just remember, if I swipe left, I'm going to the right. If I swipe right, I'm going to the left. So if I take a 3-finger swipe right, I'm going back a page.
Home. Page 1 of 15.
Okay.
Fitness.
And that
Move
same
ring.
thing applies if you're scrolling up or down, like if you're on a web page. If you swipe the 3 fingers up, you're scrolling down to the next bottom, or the next page on the website. And vice versa. If you do a 3-finger swipe down, you're scrolling up a page. So just remember, a 3-finger, either swipe left, swipe right, swipe up, or swipe down is our scrolling feature. So on a home screen, if you want to go to page 2, I do a 3-finger swipe left.
Page 2 of 15.
Okay.
Seeing AI.
I'm in my page 2. And if I want to go to my page 3, I just do a 3-finger swipe left.
Page 3 of 15. Find my.
And if I want to go back,
Double tap to open. Edit mode.
I would do a 3-finger swipe left.
Page 2 of 15. Seeing AI.
That's basically using 3 fingers, either swiping up, down, left, or right is our scrolling feature. Okay. The next thing I want to talk about is 4 fingers.
Hey, Shri, just a heads up. We have about 10 more minutes.
Okay, I just want to cover these 2 things and I'll open up to Q&A. Okay, so our last gesture is 4 fingers. A 4-finger single tap moves the VoiceOver focus to the top of the screen. Instead of me having to swipe left, I can do a 4-finger single tap and take me to the top left part of the screen.
Seeing AI.
Okay, all I have to do is take 4 fingers and touch towards the top of the screen and moves it to the top left. And the same thing, if I take 4 fingers and I touch towards the bottom of the screen, it moves the VoiceOver focus to the last element on the bottom right. So if I do a 4-finger single tap on the bottom of the screen.
Dock. Assistant.
Okay, it took to the dock.
Double tap to open.
It took me to the dock and all the way down to the bottom. And the last gesture I want to talk about is a 4-finger double tap. This brings up our help menu. This is what I want you guys to take from this whole class, is doing the 4-finger double tap. So if I do a 4-finger double tap.
Starting help. To stop help, perform a 4-finger double tap or 2-finger scrub, or press escape on the keyboard.
Okay, this brings up my help menu. This is where you practice all the gestures that I went over. For example, if I do a touch, I'm on the help menu, so you can't break it. Just perform any kind of finger gesture. So I'm just going to do a touch with 1 finger.
Touch. Speak item.
Okay, it explained what I did. So if I do a 3-finger swipe down.
3-finger swipe down. Scroll up.
Okay, it explains what the gesture is that you perform. I'll do a 2-finger double tap.
2-finger double tap. Magic tap.
Okay, so I want you to take 4 fingers and tap the screen 2 times, and it brings up the help menu. And then you can practice all the finger gestures that I covered today. And to turn off the help menu, all you need to do is do a 4-finger double tap.
4-finger double tap. Start help. Stopping help.
Okay, it stops help, and now you're back to your screen as normal. So hopefully these finger gestures will help you navigate your phone. And I would say if you can do these finger gestures, most likely you could do pretty much, I would say about maybe 80% of the phone you could do right now. So with that, Sean, I'll go ahead and open it up to questions again.
All right. Thank you so much, Shri. And again, folks, to unmute yourself, there is a microphone at the bottom left of your screen. Additionally, you can press Alt plus the letter A. If you're on the phone, it's *6.
I have a question.
All right.
Is that me?
Yep,
Go ahead.
Okay. How do I get VoiceOver originally? I'm at my email. How do I go to VoiceOver?
You're at your phone.
So to turn VoiceOver on and off, depending on how you have set up the accessibility, the shortcut accessibility, but if it's brand new, you haven't done anything with your phone, if you have a phone with the home button, you press it 3 times, it turns on and off VoiceOver. If you have a phone that doesn't have the home button, you press the side button 3 times, it'll turn VoiceOver on or off. In this example about the email, if you want to go to the top of the email and start reading, you do a 4-finger single tap on top of the screen. And then you can do either a 2-finger swipe down or 2-finger swipe up, and it'll start reading the email for you.
What about an iPad, which would be easier to read than the iPhone?
The gestures that I covered today works exactly the same way on the iPad.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Someone else had a question?
Janice, go ahead.
Thanks, Sean. First, 2 questions. First, you mentioned the sensitivity of the screen, Shri. Is it very important that one keeps their screen clean in order for the functions to operate properly?
That's a good question. I typically like to keep my screen clean just because from a hygiene perspective, being able to give my phone to like the rest of my family. So I try to keep it clean. Now, the only thing I would say is sometimes when you're swiping and there's like dirt in there, you may not get like a clean swipe. But it typically will recognize the swipes because these are not like millimeter, movement. You're kind of moving throughout the screen.
Mm-hmm.
So it will pretty much recognize. What I was talking about sensitivity is, we sometimes like I'll hear people banging on the iPhone, like a really hard tap, and you don't need to do that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. And my second question was, knowing that you teach down at the Martin Luther King Jr. Library, could you have you considered giving the same class for Android?
I typically, like, my Android days have been a little bit gone by now. So I would probably, I don't know it as, as good as the iPhone, but I can definitely lead you to, like I said, I volunteered at iBug today, and we do offer Android support.
Right. I know there's the Android Insight. Thank you.
Right. Okay. And about the Android, I'll talk to Patrick about doing the Android. This has come up, and it really depends on if the library is interested in doing it or not.
Right. You bug them, and I've been bugging them too. So we'll get them from both sides.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions?
Shri, one question I have, if people are just getting started with VoiceOver, what would you say would be like the first couple things that they should practice to get familiar with it?
Yeah, I would say the swiping left and right and double tapping. I mean, that's basically, most of the things that we do on our iPhone, either we're going to be swiping left or right, or we're going to be double tapping. So obviously, turning the VoiceOver on, like I said, when you get a brand new phone or a brand new iPad, just simply pressing the home button 3 times or pressing the power button 3 times will turn VoiceOver on. And then simply, I will tell you, when I first started my iPhone journey, the first 2 weeks, all I did was practice my gestures. Because my philosophy is, if you don't know the gestures, it's very hard to do the other things. Now, people will come and say, "Hey, Shri, I want to put a person in my contacts." And I'll try and explain, okay, this is what you do. But if you don't know the gestures, it just becomes really difficult because then you'll get stuck. And so learning the gestures is just like learning the white cane. We could walk out there not taking a mobility training on the white cane. Yeah, we could start tapping on the road or the floor, but we may not know what we're running into, And that's the way my approach is. And, I have a motto when I teach class, I call it 2 peas in a pod. The pod, the POD, is if you want to be proficiency over your device, you have to have the other 2 P's. The 2 P's are patience and practice. And I can tell you from a person who had sight and lost his sight, someone who can do things really fast and then go into doing something really slow, I had to be very patient. And that's why I spent 2 weeks about 4 or 5 hours every 2 weeks, just learning these gestures so that I became very familiar with it, so that I can do other things. Because these gestures that I went over are kind of like the basic swiping gestures. Then we have the rotor. Then we go into like text editing when Siri doesn't dictate things correctly, how to fix all those. So it's like it's a progress, and learning these gestures will make it a lot easier to go to the next step.
Great.
Yes.
Hi, this is Paul D'Addario. I have a question for you.
Yeah, Paul.
And this may already exist, and this is actually for Shri and Sean. You have a document that sort of goes over the basic gestures practice in the beginning that the POB could have in a resource that they can then pass along to people who contact POB.
Sure. So Sean, what I went over today, I actually have a written document of it, which I'm happy to share with you.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to just repeat the question. It was a little quiet. So the question was if there was a document with the different gestures for VoiceOver that potentially Shri could share. Go ahead, Shri, then.
Yeah, so I do have this thing. What I went over today, I've got it kind of written in the cheat sheet. I'll just kind of polish it up, and then I can give it to Sean, and he's more than welcome to distribute it or post it where you need to for a review.
Thank you.
And don't practice these. And I know, me being involved with teaching others, I've had a student who was 89 years old and didn't know how to use her iPad at all. And within 12 weeks, she's sending text messages to her granddaughter and sending emails and doing all these things. And so if you have the patience and practice, you can be pretty proficiency on these devices. And Sean, if you ever want to take it to some other classes on this, to the next level of like rotor and stuff, I'm more than happy to help too.
Thank you.
Next class will be more advanced.
And hopefully you guys find this useful. You've learned something new, and if you did, this is great.
So, am I unmuted?
Yes.
We can hear you.
Okay. I'm unmuted?
Yes.
Okay. When did you say this recording would come out?
Later this week.
Along with a cheat sheet.
Along with the cheat sheet.
Yeah, I'll work on the cheat sheet today. I'll give it to Sean by tomorrow. I
Thank
just
you.
want to polish it because right now mine is like really short cliff notes, and I'll put it in a much more precise
That would be helpful.
verbiage.
Thank you. Put it in a large print.
That Sean, would you be able to
Yeah,
put
I
that in
can
large
put it in
print?
large. Yeah, I'll put it in large print.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Yep.
And Sean, do you want me to just send it to you as a text file? Would that be okay, or you want it like in a document?
Yeah, if you just send it in like Word or something like that, that'll be simple enough.
Okay. I can do
Yeah.
that.
All right. So I think a major takeaway, Shri, from this is that learning VoiceOver, it's about you got a lot of repetition, a lot of practice.
Yes.
But once you start getting it down, there's so much more to unlock from it, it sounds like.
Yeah, what I've went over today is like the tip of basic gestures, just the swipe and tap, what I covered. There's, like I said, there's rotors, there's other techniques that we use to kind of navigate around the phone. But if you know the ones that I covered today, like I said, 80% of the things you can do as it relates to navigating around the iPhone.